Let's pick up on the markets now. The JSE looking set to open to positive global markets today, with the rand hovering at around 17 rand against the dollar. This is amid a tense focus on U.S. inflation numbers later. Independent analyst Jimmy Moyaha joining us now for more analysis of how the stock market is doing at this hour. Jimmy, good morning to you. Let's start with the rand, which seems to be fighting to stay below the 17 rand against the dollar mark. Is that where we are headed anyway?
Good morning, Tony. Well, the rand at the moment has breached that 17 rand mark, touching as high as almost 17 rand 20. So we were well out of where we thought we'd be in terms of wanting the rand to come back to 16 rand, possibly even 15 rand. So this will be a concern for our monetary policy as well. And with the U.S. inflationary data coming out later, if we do not get positive data in that respect, and we do see that we have a worse off situation for South Africa, in that the inflationary data is not weaker than expected, thus giving the dollar a bit of weakness. So if we see a lot of dollar strength coming in, we could see the rand continue to push higher. We know that the rand hasn't been in its territory since sort of the mid-pandemic times, and we were expecting that at the moment the inflationary data is going to be absolutely critical, because it gives direction from a U.S. policy perspective as to how they intend to adjust their monetary policy and their interest rates going forward, to see if they can tabs on their inflation that's already run more than they've expected. We know that their inflation print, the last one that they came out with last month, wasn't what they expected. It was higher than expected, and that was a concern for them. So we're expecting to see that if we get a similar type of reading here, that we might see the U.S. make some significant policy changes, and it will then filter through to how we expect our policy changes to come through from our local central bank.
Yeah, let's talk about the retail sales numbers for the month of May, which are due from Stats SA soon. Do you think that data has moderated at all?
So with those retail sales numbers, I mean, it'll be just as important as some of the other data that we've seen in recent times, because they will now factor into, or they'll take into account from a retail perspective in South Africa, the effect of some of the things that we've seen recently, things like the flooding that we saw happen in KZN again, things. So it'll be interesting to see how those numbers have affected sort of consumer or retail goods from a consumer perspective. We know that the increasing price of things and price of goods at the moment is going to be an area of serious concern. We know that basic goods have gone up quite significantly off the back of an increase in oil prices and fuel prices, and so those retail numbers are going to be indicative of consumer sort of spend on retail goods within the difficult situation that we find ourselves in at the moment.
Yeah, let's quickly talk company news. Anglo American announcing a milestone in its copper project in Peru. Talk us through those developments.
Yes, so Anglo American has announced that their operations in Peru have finally gotten the regulatory clearance that they've needed to begin. They're looking to get up and running, and from their perspective, I mean, they're just saying that this is roughly 4 years after the initial sort of proposition or set up for that, and for that timeline. I mean, if we consider that 2 of those years were spent under lockdown, this is a remarkable turnaround time for them. They said that once the operation is fully up and running, it should add or increase production by around 10% for them. It will increase jobs in Peru by about 2,500 jobs. So they're very positive at this stage, and it looks like they're going to be able to get off the ground quite soon with that project.
Let's conclude the conversation with shares in the debt-laden Tongaat Hewlett surging by almost 18% following an announcement that the Artemis Investments has increased its shareholding. Is this good news for this company that is laden with debt?
Well, if you remember, Artemis had about 8.5% prior to this increase over the last, two and a bit weeks. And from their perspective, we know that they've had a lot of questions for Tongaat, and they've had a lot of concerns around Tongaat's debt levels. Their activist stance on this has been quite clear. We know that Artemis was concerned about that rights offer as well. They did also want Tongaat to consider the Mozambican offer so there was an offer made on their Mozambican assets by an American investment firm, and they wanted that to be considered and taken into account to help reduce Tongaat's debt levels. Now, at the time, Tongaat couldn't enter into that agreement because they said that the rights offer or the negotiations and the rights offer process prevented them from entering into negotiations for the sale of those Mozambican.
The number you have dialed has been disconnected or is no longer in.
Oh no. Just as we conclude our conversation with Jimmy Moyaha, independent market analyst. Well, we do apologize for the patchy line as well. We could make out what he's saying, but barely. That's because of Eskom. Blame Eskom. It is as a result of Eskom. All right, Jimmy Moyaha, thank you very much for that markets update.